Welcome to the Sales Podcast, session 76. It's time to automate, integrate, dominate, and negotiate. Welcome to the Sales Podcast, session 76. I'm Wes Schaefer, the Sales Whisperer, your host. Today we've got Miss Eldonna Lewis-Fernandez. She is a career negotiator, spent 23 years in the Air Force as a contract buyer, purchaser, and negotiator. So she has taken that skill set and has applied it to corporate America for salespeople, business owners, entrepreneurs to get more out of every negotiation. And she also has a fascinating story about overcoming setbacks in her personal life, both as a child and as an adult. So you will want to pay close attention to this podcast. But in line with our topic of negotiation, today's funny is about a couple of lawyers. They were negotiating a case, and they were walking along, chit-chatting about it. And one of the attorneys says, "Look, let's be honest with each other." "Okay, you first," said the other attorney. That was the end of that discussion. Ouch. I really do love attorneys, at least the couple that I know that are nice, and there's only a few of them. But anyway, let's move on to the Sales Podcast creed, shall we? Today is my day. I work diligently towards my goals, which are bigger than me. I bite off more than I can chew because only then will I truly know my current limits, and surpassing them becomes my new goal for today. Through education, accountability partners, and bold, decisive action, today will be better than yesterday, and tomorrow will be better yet. I'm ready to produce. Now, please welcome Miss Eldonna Lewis-Fernandez. Eldonna Lewis-Fernandez, fellow Air Force veteran. Think like a negotiator. We're going to get into the whole pink motorcycle thing, too, so get ready. So welcome to the Sales Podcast. How are you?
I'm awesome. Great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for making time on this Friday. I know this won't come out until late June, but happy Memorial Day, my fellow vet.
Yeah, back at you.
So for those that don't know you, would you mind take a minute or two and say hello? Let us get to know your background a little bit.
Awesome. Yeah, well, I'm a retired Air Force vet, fellow veteran, and I was in the Air Force for 23 years, and I was in the contracting career field. I always say I flew a desk.
Yep.
When people that don't know anything about the Air Force, they say, "What'd you fly?" "Oh, I flew a desk." I was a contracts person.
And do you know Joe? He's in the Air Force, too, right?
I know lots of Joes.
No, I don't know. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Yeah, he was stationed way over there. Have you ever been there? No, I haven't.
All right, so you flew a desk. All right.
Flew a desk as a contract. I was a contracts. My career field was called contracts specialist, so I handled negotiation, administration of contracts. I also did some computer system administration for about 5 years of the 23 I was in. Served on the honor guard for 5 years, which I really totally enjoyed that, doing military honors and marching in parades and things like that. So that was a lot of fun. And started riding motorcycles when I was in the military and got to be stationed in England for 4 years and did my first 4 years of riding over in England and Europe, which was awesome. Retired from the Air Force and went to work for a couple of defense contractors as a contracts negotiator and administrator. And so that's where my whole negotiation background comes from and why I've started to teach people how to think like a negotiator.
Right.
And the whole, on the other side, my other positioning, Pink Biker Chick, all about taking control of the handlebars of your life, is based on my 18 years of motorcycle riding. And it's the analogy of not taking a back seat in your life and going from the back seat to the front seat, taking control of the handlebars and rolling on your throttle to accelerate success.
So how did you make that transition from lifetime government work to jumping into being an entrepreneur? Because it's not as easy as people would think.
Yeah, it's really not. Well, when I was in the military, I was a Mary Kay consultant part-time. So I was doing that, and then I was making photo albums for people early on. I used to make these fabric-covered photo albums. So I think I've always done something entrepreneurial to make money on the side. I Mary Kay, I did that for a long time. I'm actually still a Mary Kay person, but for personal use. Mary Kay is one of my heroes, mentors, if you will. I just really love her work ethic, her perseverance, how she stood up and just made a decision to do something when everybody told her she couldn't. So I just use her as a role model, and I have for many years. And so when I retired from the military, I was still doing the Mary Kay, and I never really thought I was going to become a full-fledged entrepreneur, but I started to work and speak with a nonprofit in 2006, helping women in crisis. And I found that when I shared my story, it gave other people hope, because I'm a victor over a lifetime of chronic trauma, alcoholic parents and abusive relationships and things like that I had throughout my life. And people look at me and they don't see it today because I've done the work and I have a lot of peace within me. And so starting to share my story with women in crisis, I realized speaking was something that I was called to do. So that's kind of how I got started on that path.
Very cool. Let's dive in for a little bit. I want to come back to this women in crisis and how you overcame that. But I want to touch on your negotiation. You and I spoke a little bit about it when we met a couple of months ago at Bob's. But I took the old Chester Karras class years and years ago, I think around 2001. And it was fantastic. Literally changed my life as a salesperson. I was still kind of new in sales, and I've been in it for a few years, but this really opened my eyes to seeing things from the buyer's standpoint. And you spent your entire career on the buyer's side of things. So now as an entrepreneur and you're helping others, what should they take away from your experience to make them better salespeople, so they really do reach that win-win, settlement or agreement in their business?
Yeah, well, like the title on my book, Think Like a Negotiator, 50 Ways to Create Win-Win Results and Understanding the Pitfalls to Avoid. And when I say win-win, I mean, you're not going to get everything you want in a negotiation, but I want both sides to be able to win and walk away feeling good about the interaction. So that's where that comes from. But the number one thing that's why it's called Think Like a Negotiator. It's a mindset that you have to have. You have to be in that mindset, thinking in that kind of a mindset in order to be a good negotiator and negotiate good deals. But the number one tip, one of the biggest mistakes that most people make is thinking that everything's not negotiable. And if you think that everything is negotiable and look beyond the box of, this is the statute, or this is the rule, or this is what they're presenting to me and there's no way to go around it. If you think like a negotiator and understand that everything's negotiable, you can find some way around just about anything.
Right. Well, but I don't know. Looking at these negotiators, right, when you're dealing with this tough buyer, are there games that the buyers play? I mean, are they passing salespeople off, to kind of wear them down? I mean, can it be that ruthless in your experience?
Oh, definitely. So negotiation's just a game. I kind of relate it to a chess game. Think about chess. Chess is a game of strategy, and so is negotiation. In the chess game, somebody makes a move and the other person considers that move, and they consider their strategy and they make a move, and so forth and so on. Same thing in negotiation. If you have somebody who's experienced at negotiation, they're just playing a game. And if you think of it, it's like, this is just a game. They're using this strategy. Maybe they're using a strategy of not talking, or they're using a strategy of being kind of ranting or ruthless or rude or whatever, just doing something to wear you down to leverage their position and get more of what they want. So you have to look at it as a game. And when you look at it as a game and kind of step back and look at maybe, well, what are they doing? Oh, they're being kind of rude. So you can either respond in one of two ways. You can either match what they're doing, or you can just kind of kill them with kindness. I had somebody who was very rude to me once, and she just kept being rude. And I just kept being kind and soft-spoken, and she finally broke and came around and came down off of that that strategy, and it made the thing work better. But I recognized that it was a strategy. So a lot of times when people are being rude, ruthless, nasty, whatever, in your face, they're just doing it to break you down. And if you look at it as just a game, that gives you leverage on your part.
Well, and I've got to imagine, too, that negotiator, that buyer at some big company or wherever, they are under pressure as well, right? I mean, not only do they have to get a good price, but they have to get the best quality, and I gotta imagine at any one time you had dozens, if not hundreds, of contracts floating around that had to be settled that week or that month or that quarter. So, if somebody was holding out for a while and you knew it was the product that you needed, eventually you would have to give in, right?
Definitely. If it was just something that I couldn't get from anywhere else. Yeah, because when I was a buyer in the military, we had certain days. We had depending on what the priority level was for the item, if it was a higher priority, like considered a priority, like a priority 1 was wartime stuff. A 2 or 3 meant high priority. Anything 4 through whatever was less priority, and you had only a couple of days to get it bought and awarded and in the system and out the door. So you received it, you had to get on it right away and get it bought in a hurry. So I didn't reveal that to people, but if that was something that kind of persuaded my way of doing business, because I needed to get it, and if it was something that only 1 or 2 companies were able to provide, that would cause me a problem if they were stonewalling me with prices. But I usually found a way around things.
So being in the military and being a contracts negotiator, I mean, that doesn't create images of hand holding and kumbaya, right? This is like cut and dry, get down to business. But could people soften you up? I mean, was that a futile effort, or did you reward those that would take the time to get to know you, try to take you to lunch or just do something, to change the equation a little bit, to make it a little more personal?
Well, in the military, there were certain things that you could not do. One was you couldn't go to lunch with people for that reason, because they didn't want favoritism. Uh-huh. That was a way to prevent favoritism. Not that it never happens in the government, but I was pretty strict with those rules.
It's called junkets when they fly our senators on private jets to strip clubs,
right.
For research. Yeah. But anyway.
I never got to partake in any of that. Not that I would, but no. But there was just those things that you couldn't do. But there were times, there was a section that I worked in where I bought all the civil engineering supplies for the base, and we had blanket purchase agreements, which were contracts with certain contractors to provide certain things, and we would call them on a regular basis. So I developed relationships with them. And anybody I called, I worked on building some type of relationship with them, and that building the relationship usually got me a good price, which that definitely happened in the Middle East, which I can share about that in a minute. But it was all about, okay, I trust this person to give me a good price, and I have a good relationship with them, so I'm likely to call them back for a price the next time. Somebody else who was rude and nasty, I didn't. As a matter of fact, on one occasion, we had a couple of concrete vendors where we would call for some concrete when they were doing some work on the base. And I had just taken over in this section, and there was what's known as a quantity variation where the contractor could go over plus or minus 10% and still get paid, because concrete is not something you can get an exact. It's not a piece item. It's by the yard, but it would be plus or minus at times. Well, this guy was going over the 10%, and the guy before me was paying him. Well, when I took over and he did it, I only paid him up to the 10%. And he called me up and was screaming and yelling at me, threatening that he was going to bring his attorneys to the front gate and he was going to do this, that, and the other thing, to which I said, sorry, I don't listen to people yelling at me, and thank you, but won't be doing business with you anymore. Click. And that's the last time I ever did business with him because of his nasty attitude.
You mean screaming and yelling, throwing a temper tantrum doesn't help get business?
No. Although one of the tips in my book is deflection by rant, which you can do that if you're in a serious conversation with somebody. You might just go on a rant about something and kind of turn the conversation away from whatever topic you're talking about. But the whole screaming and yelling thing doesn't typically work, at least not with me. I've been threatened and yelled at and screamed at, and I just would hang up the phone.
Well, so you were savvy enough to go out and befriend your contractors to kill them with kindness. But how can our listeners, if they're calling on a buyer like you, and their hands are kind of tied, and even I called on some government contracts in my selling career, but I would call them big government or big companies as well, Dell and Google and Sprint, Verizon, all that, telecom. I did a lot. And sometimes those guys I couldn't get close to, or they couldn't go to lunch, do things. They would literally buy their own lunch when we went out. But how can people, what are some things that can work for them to soften up a buyer like you, when there are limits?
Well, what some vendors would do in the local area, like I had when I was a buyer in my first base in Tampa, Florida, there was a couple of vendors that did office supply kind of stuff, and he came by and he was personable and kind, and he had a personality that he was coming across authentic. When people would come across inauthentic, it would just kind of put up a barrier for me, like, okay, yeah, you're not being authentic, I don't really want to talk to you. But this guy was authentic, and oftentimes he would come by and see what he could help me with. I'm just here to help you do your job, and if there's anything I can help you with. And the first time I gave him a couple of items to get me prices on, and he got them back to me really quickly. And so that built the relationship from there. I knew I could count on him. He built the know, like, and trust factor. So it's really important, especially for a government buyer, to have that know, like, and trust factor, or even a buyer in a big company, where it used to be a pain to have to meet with. That was just another thing in the day. Okay, we have to meet with these people when they come by. And so at first, we're automatically like, oh, gosh, really? I don't have time for this. I have this stack of things I got to buy, and I really don't want to talk to this guy. So you got to know that the buyer has that attitude, like, I really don't want to talk to you. I have too much to do. So you have to put them at ease and make them feel comfortable and make them feel like they can trust you and that you're there to serve them, not you're there to sell them, which obviously you're there to sell them, but you have to come in a way where you're being of service to help them do their job better.
Yeah. I'm happy you brought that up, because I learned years ago, I had Steve Clark on a couple of months ago, and he was my early sales training mentor, and he always says, selling is a calling, serving is its purpose. Asking good questions is the process, and a sale may be the solution. But truly having that serving mentality, attitude, just because you're getting paid well to serve somebody doesn't negate the fact you're still serving. It's like a good waiter at a restaurant. They're serving, and they know the better the experience, the bigger the tip they're going to get. And it's the same in your situation, right?
Yeah, well, have you ever gone into maybe a department store where the person on the other end acts like they're doing you a favor instead of serving you? That will get, even in a restaurant, like, really, here's your menu. Right. I'll sometimes get up and walk away, like, okay, don't like this attitude. I came here for service.
Right.
That's why you're called a server. And there's so many other people that would love to have a job. They would love to have your job, and you're standing there with an attitude. You may be having a rough day, but your job is to serve at this moment. So you need to put your stuff aside and serve. And if you really don't like serving, then get out of that job and go do something where you don't have to serve people. Because
right.
you need to be connecting with people and make them feel like that their experience, whether it's in a department store or a grocery store or a restaurant, that experience needs to be good for the customer so they'll come back again.
Right. I know. Amen. Well, let's go back to your story of overcoming the issues you had in your life. And I'm not familiar with that at all. But when I met you and I see your talks, I heard you speak, see how you carry yourself. Obviously, you overcame all of this. I mean, you're a success versus a victim, right? And I see a lot of people, we all have some messed up stuff in our lives to some greater or lesser degree. So, walk us through that. How can people turn a struggle into a victory?
Yeah, and I love the word victor and victory. When I was speaking once, I had someone come up to me and say, "Did you say victor over?" And I said, "Yes, I did." So I could be a survivor, but if you look in the dictionary, the word survive means to exist, and the word victory means to triumph over. So I choose to triumph over than to just exist. And my story goes back to starting with my childhood. I was born to two alcoholic parents late in their lives. My mother was 47 and my father was 51 when I was born. And that in itself is kind of interesting, especially back then. My mother left my sister's father to marry my father, and they were both alcoholics. So I grew up if you know anything about growing up in addiction or alcoholism or any type of addiction, it has a web of destruction that goes through the entire family. And my mother, I don't remember her saying anything to me other than, "You're no good, you're a hellion, you're a spoiled brat, I'm sending you away, get out of my sight." Those are the kind of things that she said to me. And so she set me up with negative self-esteem, just constantly belittling me and just because of her disease, her sickness. And when she died when I was 12 of alcoholism. My father basically died emotionally, and she had bottles of scotch stashed all over the house. And my father, when I was 16, showed me a pack of checks where she had written a check to the liquor store every other day for a fifth of scotch for like 2 years. So she was really in her disease. And so when she died, my father basically shut off and just sat on the couch drinking beer, smoking cigarettes, not saying much to me, maybe telling me I was a loser now and then. So he never parented me, and I didn't do such a good job parenting myself. I got in some trouble. I dropped out of high school when I was 16. I was running with the bad crowd. He let I didn't realize how horrendous this was until I had children of my own, but he let my boyfriend move in the house when I was 15, who raped me in the house under my father's roof, and with my father in the room next door. So my setup was basically, as a woman, you get abused, and that's just what you do. And so when I was 18, I came home one day to find the house was empty, a note of eviction on the door. He'd packed up and moved from Texas to Florida and didn't leave me a forwarding address. So I was pretty much on my own. And I remember one day seeing a commercial about the Air Force. Before that, I decided I needed to do something with my life. I got my GED. And then I saw the commercial about the Air Force, which was like, "Air Force, a great way of life." That sounded like an adventure to me. So I found myself, "Oh, okay, let's do this."
Yeah.
I just kind of made a decision, like, let's do this. So I showed up, I enlisted, and when I was 19, I went on active duty. And basically, the Air Force saved my life professionally. I got a degree in business management and the community college, the Air Force degree in contracts management. But personally, I was pretty much a train wreck because my parents had brought me up with the example. They used to beat each other up. My father would throw my mother across the room. My mother hit my father over the head with an ashtray. There were stitches, bruises, fights. If they weren't fighting, I didn't feel comfortable. So I recreated that chaos in my own life by attracting those kind of individuals. And I was connected with alcoholics, drug addicts. One individual beat me up so bad, and I always say it's the hand of God that took his arm from around my neck because he was choking me to shut me up. And I blacked out, and I woke up on the floor just bruised and broken. I was active duty and thought, I better cover this up and not say anything because I'm going to get in trouble. Craziness. And it's kind of what women in that situation think. And I've had people that don't understand domestic violence say, "Well, why didn't you just leave?" I mean, it sounds simple enough. Who in their right mind would stay in abuse like that? But I wasn't in my right mind. I was paralyzed and traumatized, and I couldn't stay and I couldn't leave. And I went through relationships like that for many, many years, and even friendships that were kind of crazy with crazy-making people. I mean, I had great friends, too, but I would attract to some people that just were not healthy for me. And then one day, and this is only 9 years ago, one day I was engaged to somebody who left me for somebody else, and he cut me out of the business we were in together. And I had been doing a little bit of work on myself and kind of started to feel my feelings that I'd stuffed all those years of my life. And I looked in the mirror one day and saw the problem looking back at me. You know, the problem was me. I needed to make changes in my life, and that's when I started to do the work on myself. I got into some programs dealing with growing up with alcoholic parents and did a lot of stuff to release the resentment, and I worked with counselors, pastors, coaches. I attended seminars and read books and did acupuncture and yoga and massage and any other kind of healing I could do. I did every kind of work until the woman looking back at me is the woman that I am today, the strong, confident, powerful woman who loves myself and has total peace and carries no resentment towards any of that.
Right. Well, that's fantastic. Because what's the old saying that about hate, like poisons the vessel or something like that? Remember that?
What I always say is resentment is the poison we take that we think kills others, but really kills our spirit. Mm-hmm. And I heard somebody else say it's like taking arsenic and hoping it kills the other person.
Right.
and really, I mean, that's the key. If you carry around resentment and unforgiveness, look, we've all had something done to us. We've all had something. I just happen to have a whole lot more than the average person. But if you think about it and you still feel that burning inside, you have some resentment. You need to get rid of it because it'll just eat you up and you'll never be able to have peace. I mean, not to say that people still don't do me wrong here and there, and I have to work through the feelings of resentment, but the power's in the work. I do the work to release it because I don't want that junk cluttering up my life, my mind space.
Right. I talk about that too. The powers in the work, just in sales training. I say, don't start your prospecting and networking when you feel like it. Go do the work, and you'll feel better because of it. And the attitude and the confidence will come from the action. Just like going to the gym. I just got back from the gym a little while ago, and I was tired. The baby's up. A good bit in the last week or so, and I'm tired, but, I go to the gym anyway, and I'm always glad that I do, because the work brings the results.
Definitely. So many people want to just flip a light switch and have, they want to be an expert or they want to make their life better. You can't flip a light switch. You have to do the work. You see all these things on TV about lose weight this way, fast solution. Here's a solution to your problem. No, the solution, unfortunately, is hard work. You have to do the work.
Can you say that again?
The solution is that you have to do the work. You cannot flip a light switch to become an expert. One of the tips in my book is drill my skills, and I relate that back to military drill and precision. When I was on the honor guard, I was on the honor guard for 5 years. We did military honors. We folded the flag. We did the 21-gun salute at funerals. We marched in parades. We posted the colors at events. They would not let me go out and represent the United States Air Force until I had that down in such a way of top priority type precision where it was perfect. It came off. You march together. You have to march a certain way. When you post the colors, it has to be precision. Everybody has to be going at the same time. They're not going to let me just one day go out. I actually, on the color guard, I marched beside somebody who was the color guard commander, whoever holds the U.S. flag. And that's how I learned how to be color guard commander. Whoever holds the U.S. flag's in charge of the color guard was by being next to somebody. I mean, I could march. And we did a lot of training before we went out, but I watched people and I trained and drilled continuously until I got good at it. And in my 5 years, we did so many funerals because we were close to Houston National Cemetery. And if you fold the flag and if it has any red showing, you cannot present it to the next of kin. And one time in my 5 years, because it takes the whole team, it comes down all the way down. It's 6 people folding in the triangle. we had to unfold it because I was not going to present it to the next of kin like that. And you can bet that we did a whole lot of hours of flag folding drills after that one, and it never happened again.
Mm-hmm. Well, I see, maybe it's because it's the internet and we just see things more easily or more readily, but it just seems like everybody puts themselves as an expert today, because they can just build a web page overnight and call themselves, some life coach, guru, expert. But in reality, it takes a long time. I think it was Outliers. Malcolm Gladwell's book, he talked about 10,000 hours of doing something to become a true expert, and it's just everybody's taking shortcuts today.
Definitely. And I've done a lot of speaking over the years, and I'm still training. I still in my room walk around, or I'm in my car saying whatever I'm going to say. I spoke at the California Women's Conference on Monday in a panel, and I was doing a 10-minute talk, and I know my story, the part of my story that I talk about the military, but I still go over it. And then I was kind of letting the next 7 minutes flow. It was like 10 minutes. My military speech is usually 3. So I talk about my story with my military topic, and then I just kind of went in flow. But I still trained that flow, and whatever came out, it flowed great, but I don't think it would have done as well had I not gotten in front of the mirror or in the car or walking around my house training it. I still train, and I've spoken, I don't know how many hours, but you still need to continue to do the work. Constant, never-ending improvement.
Right. I know. Amen. That's why you're on the Sales Podcast.
Awesome sauce.
So what are you up to now? I see on your website, thinklikeanegotiator.com, you've got live training coming up October 9th to the 11th. What's that all about?
So my Think Like a Negotiator training is not your normal seminar. It is a PowerPoint-free environment. And
get out of town.
We do a lot. Love the whole no PowerPoint.
Whoa. All right.
We do a lot of flip charts because the flip charts are put around the room for the concepts to be seen while you're going through the training. So we go over all 50 tips in my book, and I go over the 5 Go Pink rules of engagement for taking control of handlebars of your life. And then everybody gets put into experiential games. So I don't believe you can learn negotiation by passively listening to it. So I've created an experience where people are put into themed games with different themes, such as I have a yard sale game, which is one of the best places to go get negotiation training and experience. So I put one into my training. So everybody's going around to actual little yard sale tables and negotiating for items to see what kind of deals they can get. Then I have a pirate game, which is based on it's a historic pirate kind of rum production. It's called Rum Runners, and everybody's producing more rum for Captain Sasha Morgan, my pirate. So I have little characters that I use, and I have props, and I have a game based on my time in the Middle East, and a game post-World War II, and I'm working on bringing an actual marketplace in so you can go through the training and then have some vendors to go actually negotiate with afterwards. So it's a different kind of experience, and oh yes, we have a have fun portion as well because you have to have some fun and let that stuff off. So that's if you go to my website, thinklikeanegotiator.com, there is a little promo video that shows the last training. It's very interactive. People get the opportunity to present on stage because I think presentation skills are an important part of negotiation, and it could be just as much as just sharing what you just learned. And I think it's important to work on your presentation skills, and not a lot of seminars out there let anybody near their stage, so people have the opportunity to do that as well. So it's a really fun training. It's a great environment. You get to meet and connect with everybody in the room, so it's not like a typical seminar where you're networking in the hallway. You actually connect with everybody during the games and get to see how they interact and stuff. So it's great relationship building. It's just an all-around fun time. I really love doing it, and I love to see the transformation in people. It's not just about negotiation. It's also about the work, the personal work as well, the inner game.
Right. Yeah, I'm looking at it here. You should charge a lot more money.
Well, that is my early bird special. That is going to change very rapidly. That
Okay.
$347 is the early bird special, and a portion of that goes to scholarship a veteran into the event. So
Yeah, good.
I'm looking to help my veteran brothers and sisters that are transitioning out of the military and those who are just out there after serving, and helping them out as well, because I really have a passion to help my veteran brothers and sisters.
Very cool. Yeah, as I traveled the world, I remember I learned my first assignment was South Korea. And we'd go out into the Ville, it's called, right outside the base, and just shops everywhere. And, Americans, we don't negotiate. And I don't know, I think we're one of the few nations that don't, right? But the Asian countries, Middle East, when I was in Abu Dhabi, we negotiated. You haggle at the souk, But I learned if the vendor did not physically flinch, then I didn't offer low enough. They would come out and say, hey, get this leather bomber jacket, for you, $200, right? And if I'd say, $175, if they'd go, well, I don't know, maybe $180, so I didn't go low enough. But if I'd say $50, they would literally jump back like I shocked them with a cattle prod. But if I didn't go that low, then I wouldn't know their true bottom dollar, right? Then they get upset. No way, But maybe I'd buy it at 100 instead of buying it at 180, But why don't we negotiate in America?
Well, a lot of people see negotiation as confrontational, and people in America don't really like confrontation. If you see people walking on the street, people don't even look at each other half the time. They look at their cell phone. Everybody's so disconnected. There is one thing that emotionally connected people perform better. And again, going back to the thing that negotiation's just a game. If you look at it as a game, it makes it fun. What's funny is people look at me as this small, petite woman, and they think, oh, well, whatever. And they don't know that I have this whole arsenal of tools where I can negotiate the paint off a wall, basically. And I love that. That's one of my leverage things that I use for leverage. But it goes back to the confrontation. People don't like, especially women. I think women more than men, because most women are not direct communicators. We're not taught to ask for what we want. And we're not taught to go out and actually, well, asking seems confrontational. So you have to ask for what you want. I was in a restaurant at a seminar not too long ago, and I've been to that hotel before, and I know what I can eat there that doesn't upset my digestion. Most places they have things that, not too good. So it wasn't on the menu. And I said, where is it? There were about 8 of us sitting around. I said, where's this chicken? Well, we can't serve that right now. We're not serving that for lunch. I said, well, that's the only thing on the menu that I can eat that I know is not going to jack up my digestion. I really need that. Well, we're not serving that right now. Well, yeah, but I really need that. Is there some way I can get that? Well, would you like to talk to the manager? Yes, please. I was very courteous. And he walked away, and everybody looked at me with their mouths on the table. They said, wow, you're really comfortable with the discomfort. And the guy ends up not coming back with the manager. He comes back and says, okay, we can provide that chicken for you. Everybody applauded. But it is a discomfort. You have to get comfortable with the discomfort. And if you think of it, it's just a game and you're asking for what you want. Just put it out there. Do you really want to pay $500 if they're asking $500 for it? Right. One of the other tips in my book is never accept the first offer. Look at it as it's just an offer and see what you really feel the value is. Now, if you think that it's fair and reasonable, which is another tip in my book, about if you think the price is fair and reasonable, you may not go and negotiate. But really, most times people just present you with an offer, and it's just their first offer. And if you take it, hey, they're probably a lot happier. Right.
Well, I love you talking about, get comfortable with the discomfort. I always say in my sales training that, selling it's hurt and rescue, right? It's asking tough questions. It's making that prospect squirm. You want them to say, wow, I haven't really thought about that. Or, oh, I guess things are worse than I thought. And then you help them find a solution. But if you're not willing to ask hard questions that can be uncomfortable to answer, then you're never going to get to the truth. And then you're just nibbling around the edges, picking up crumbs, and everybody loses.
Right, and most people, well, there's two reasons people don't ask. Is one, the fear of rejection, and the other, the fear of screwing up. Like, so what? Dare to suck. That's screw up. I talk about that in my training. Dare to suck. And I have to remind myself of that. Okay, if I suck this time, I will just improve for the next time. And the only way you're going to learn is to actually do it. And rejection is never personal. They're not rejecting you. They may be rejecting what you're offering because it's either not for them or they did not hear the value in it for them. So that's just about learning to get your language clearer and being able to get the ask down in a way that they'll turn it around and say, oh, yes. And then another great tip that's in my book is the stop talking tip. And I'm sure you talk about this in sales training. Once you put the offer out there, shut up. You have to stop talking, because if you don't, he or she who speaks next loses. The leverage goes to the other side. So a lot of times, and I made this mistake in Mary Kay, I would offer somebody the product and then I'd keep talking. And then they wouldn't buy anything, and I wondered why. I just didn't give them time to consider the offer. You have to get comfortable with the silence.
Yeah. Amen. I love it. All right, so let me ask you something. Where would you like people to go after they listen to this podcast? ThinkLikeANegotiator.com, is that your best place to find you?
Definitely. ThinkLikeANegotiator.com. I have a blog on there. I blog regularly about negotiation tips from my book or just general inner game stuff. I have a great 2-part series on forgiveness that I did a few weeks ago, and I kind of spell out all the things I went through and the art of forgiveness and releasing resentment and the importance about that. And, people can get good at whatever they're doing, but until they clear that stuff out of their insides, they're not going to be able to be authentic to be received by somebody else, whether it's in a relationship, in business, whatever it is. Mm-hmm. So the inner game is the most important part. So that's why I blog a lot about that. But there's my blog, there's information about my event, information how you can bring me in to speak. There's some video clips on there of me speaking as well. So all kinds of stuff there.
Well, this is fantastic. This was we brought in some angles I was not expecting, but were definitely worth exploring. So I appreciate you taking the time. And I'll encourage everybody to visit Eldonna online. There will be links to this as well from the show notes. And once again, I hope you have a happy Memorial Day weekend. And please ride your motorcycle out here to Murrieta and negotiate with my wife on my behalf on why I need one. Okay.
Send her to my website. She'll see me, little chick on a bike. If I can ride a big Harley, let me tell you, she should not only have you ride one, she should ride one too. Of course, I'm not sure if you can have enough cars for all the kids, sidecars, but
yeah, can we get like a 7 sidecar motorcycle?
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe you might have to have a trailer or something.
Make a train out of it.
Right.
Come on out. I want to see you haggle with her. That would be great.
I can do that.
All right. Well, thanks for coming on the show, Eldonna. It was fantastic.
Great. Thanks for having me. It was great.
Have a great day.
You too.
What a story, huh? Told you. I love what she talked about. You can't flip a switch and become an expert. The solution is you have to do the hard work. Drill my skills. And she really learned that in the honor guard. I don't know if you've ever really paid attention to a military honor guard, but those folks are precise, down to the smallest detail. Next time you see an honor guard, in a baseball game or something, really pay attention, and you'll be that much more impressed. But then think about, how can you apply that to your own business? What type of detail are you paying to your own business? Every little step, how you answer the phone, how you open your mouth when you make a prospecting call, how you hire, salespeople, how you advertise for them, the types of lead magnets you create for your website. What does your business card look like? Are you using both sides? Is there a call to action? Is there a way to contact you? Is there a reason to contact you? Everything matters. And despite our society's desire for instant gratification and no responsibility, the fact remains you cannot make excuses and make deposits into your bank account. You've got to take responsibility. It is your fault, whatever it is. Once you accept that, your life will change for the better forever. Yes, it may mean you take on a little extra work. You've got to create some operating procedures. You've got to implement some new rules for how things get done around your business, your company, but it will be for the better. Like I always recommend, go back and listen to this over and over. She's got great tips on negotiation. She has great tips on preparation. And we all have some type of struggle in our personal lives. And I think too many people use those as excuses to not excel. So if that is the case with you, go back and pay attention to her story of overcoming family issues, as a child, as an adult, in her married life, and how she took responsibility and overcame that and let go of resentment. That is powerful. So, like I always do, thank you for listening. Please share this podcast. Please leave a 5-star review on iTunes. And if you would like to take advantage of my sales training, please visit 30daysalesgrowth.com, enter promo code podcast, and get $30 off. Thanks for listening, and remember to sell different.